Thank you for joining me for Scary Stories for a Rainy Night. If you want to support the channel, please tap the like button for me, subscribe, and introduce yourself in the comments below. I really hope you enjoy. Now let's begin. I arrived at the old Victorian house on a rainy afternoon. It's a kind of day that wraps the world in a gray blanket, muffling sounds and dulling colors. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the promise of something new. My friend Clara had invited me to stay, a welcome escape from the chaos of my life. I was glad to accept, seeking solace in her warm, inviting home. The house stood tall amidst a garden that seemed to have lost its battle against time. Ivy climbed the walls and the paint was peeling in places, revealing the wood beneath. Clara greeted me at the door, her smile bright against the gloomy backdrop. "Welcome to my sanctuary," she said, her voice light and cheerful. Little did I know this sanctuary would soon become a labyrinth of secrets. As I stepped inside, the warmth enveloped me like a hug. The interior was a blend of the old and the new, with antique furniture that spoke of history and modern touches that hinted at Clara's vibrant personality. I could already feel the weight of my worries lifting, replaced by a sense of belonging. The first few days passed in a blur of laughter, late-night talks, and the comforting routine of shared meals. Clara and I spent hours reminiscing about our childhood, diving deep into memories that felt both distant and familiar. I found comfort in her company, and as the days turned into a week, I felt more at home than I had in years. Yet there was something peculiar about the house. At night, I would hear soft whispers echoing through the halls, like the remnants of conversations long forgotten. I brushed it off as the house settling, but the feeling lingered, a shadow dancing at the edge of my mind. One rainy evening, I decided to explore the attic. Clara had mentioned it was filled with old trunks and dusty books, treasures waiting to be unearthed. As I climbed the creaky stairs, I felt a thrill of anticipation. The attic was a world unto itself, filled with the scent of aged paper and wood. Dust motes floated in the shafts of light filtering through the small window. Among the cobwebs and forgotten relics, I stumbled upon a trunk adorned with intricate carvings. With a bit of effort, I pried it open, revealing a collection of journals. The leather covers were cracked, and the pages were yellowed with age. Curiosity piqued. I began to read. The journals belonged to Clara's grandmother, a woman whose life was woven into the fabric of this house. Each entry told stories of love, loss, and the passage of time. I felt a connection to her words, as if they were drawing me into a world that was both foreign and familiar. As I delved deeper into the journals, I became increasingly captivated by the tales of Clara's grandmother. But with each story, I also felt an unsettling presence in the house. Shadows seemed to linger longer than they should, and I often caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye. It was as if the house itself was alive, holding on to its secrets and watching me. Clara noticed my distraction and asked if everything was all right. I hesitated but decided to share my findings. Her expression darkened, and she warned me to be cautious. "The past can be a heavy burden," she said cryptically, her eyes reflecting a mix of concern and something else, fear. Regret? I couldn't tell. Despite Clara's warning, I couldn't resist the pull of the journals. The more I read, the more I felt intertwined with her grandmother's life. It was as if the pages were calling out to me, urging me to uncover the truth hidden within the words. I began to notice parallels between Clara's life and her grandmother's. Both women navigating love and loss in a world that often felt unkind. As the first pieced together their stories, I realized that Clara was grappling with her own shadows, haunted by choices that had shaped her life. One evening, as we sat on the porch, I broached the subject. "Clara, do you ever feel like you're living in your grandmother's shadow?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. She looked away, her gaze lost in the distance, and for a moment I feared I had crossed a line. But then she sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a continuation of her story." The atmosphere shifted after that conversation. Clara seemed distant, her laughter less frequent. I felt the weight of the house pressing down on both of us, the walls echoing with whispers of the past. I continued reading the journals, desperate to understand the connection between Clara and her grandmother, hoping it would bridge the growing chasm between us. One night, as a storm raged outside, I found myself drawn back to the attic. I needed answers. The journal I opened that night was different. It spoke of a tragedy that had befallen Clara's grandmother, a love lost, a choice that had changed everything. The words felt heavy, laden with grief and regret. Just as I was processing the last entry, Clara appeared in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the flickering light. "What are you doing up here?" she asked, her voice sharp. I could see the storm brewing behind her eyes, a tempest of emotions threatening to spill over. "I'm trying to understand," I replied, my heart racing. "I thought if I read more I could help you." She stepped into the attic, the air thick with tension. "You can't help me," she said, her voice trembling. "You, Dan T, know what it's like to carry the weight of someone else's choices." The confrontation marked a turning point. Clara withdrew further, and I felt the distance between us grow into an unbridgeable chasm. I tried to reach out, but she was a fortress. I was left standing outside, lost in the echoes of her grandmother's past. The whispers in the house grew louder, and I could feel the presence of something watching us, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. I became obsessed with the journals, poring over every detail, hoping to find a clue that would bring Clara back to me. One evening, I found a passage that chilled me to the bone. It spoke of a family secret, a darkness that had haunted Clara's lineage for generations. The words hinted at a cycle of pain and loss, a curse that seemed to bind the women of the family. I realized then that Clara was not just grappling with her grandmother's past, she was fighting against a legacy that threatened to consume her. As the days turned into weeks, I felt myself becoming a part of the house, entwined with its stories. The lines between my life and the lives contained within the journals blurred. I began to see visions, flashes of Clara's grandmother's life, moments of joy and sorrow playing out in front of me like a movie. One night, overwhelmed by the weight of it all, I confronted Clara again. "You can't run from this," I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. "You have to face it." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "What if facing it means losing everything?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "What if I'm destined to repeat her mistakes?" In that moment, I saw the truth behind her fear. Clara was not just afraid of the past. She was terrified of her own future. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. I had been so focused on her grandmother's story that I had forgotten Clara S. was still being written. Determined to help Clara break free from the chains of her past, I proposed a plan. "Let's confront it together," I said, my voice steady. "We can rewrite the ending. I don't have to be trapped by her choices." She hesitated, but I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes. Together, we sat down with the journals, reading aloud the passages that haunted us both. We talked about the pain, the love, and the choices that had shaped their lives. With each word, we began to untangle the threads that bound us to the past. As we shared our stories, the house seemed to shift around us. The whispers faded, replaced by a warmth that enveloped us like a protective embrace. It was as if the house itself was acknowledging our journey, welcoming us into its heart. With each passing day, Clara grew stronger, more resolute. She began to see herself not as a shadow of her grandmother, but as a woman with her own story to tell. The journals, once a source of fear, transformed into a tapestry of resilience and hope. One sunny afternoon, we decided to plant a garden in the backyard, a symbol of new beginnings. As we dug into the earth, we talked about dreams and aspirations, weaving our futures together. The house, once a keeper of secrets, became a sanctuary of healing and growth. As I write this final entry, I realize that I have become more than just a house guest. I am a part of this family's legacy. Clara and I have forged a bond that transcends time, and the whispers of the past now serve as a reminder of how far we've come. The house still stands tall, its walls echoing with laughter and love. The journals remain, but they are no longer a burden. They are a testament to the strength of women who dared to confront their pasts and embrace their futures. I came seeking solace, and in turn, I found purpose. The house guest who never left has become a part of something greater, a story that continues to unfold, one page at a time. In the town of Eldritch Hollow, nestled between the dense, whispering woods and the restless river, the air was thick with secrets. A peculiar fog rolled in each evening, cloaking the streets and the homes in a shroud that felt almost sentient. It was in this fog that the townsfolk spoke of a shadow. a presence that lingered just beyond the edges of their vision, a force that seemed to know their innermost thoughts, their hidden fears, and their unspoken desires. Lena Harper had lived in Eldritch Hollow her entire life. At 28, she was a familiar face at the local bookstore, where the scent of aged paper and ink wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. She cherished the stories that filled the shelves, tales of adventure and romance, of heroes and mythical beasts. Yet despite her love for these narratives, Lena felt a void within her, yearning for something more profound. Something that went beyond the pages of her beloved books. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the fog began to creep through the streets, Lena closed the store and made her way home. The world around her seemed to darken, the familiar path becoming increasingly obscured. She felt it then, a presence lurking just outside her peripheral vision, a shadow that danced just beyond her reach. Shaking off the chill that crept up her spine, she quickened her pace, desperate to escape the unsettling sensation. That night, as she lay in bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. The shadow was no longer just a figment of her imagination. It had become a part of her reality. In the days that followed, Lena noticed the shadow more frequently. It would flit between the trees as she walked to work, linger in the corners of her room, and even seep into her dreams, whispering secrets that left her both terrified and intrigued. Determined to confront her fears, Lena began to delve into the history of Eldritch Hollow. She uncovered tales of the shadow in the town's archive stories of those who had encountered it, each with their own experience. Some claimed it was a guardian, a protector that guided lost souls. Others warned it was a harbinger of doom, a warning of the darkness that lurked within the hearts of men. Lena felt an inexplicable connection to these stories, as if the shadow had chosen her for a reason. One rainy afternoon, while sifting through dusty tomes in the library, Lena stumbled upon an old journal belonging to a woman named Alara, a resident of Eldritch Hollow over a century ago. Alara wrote of a similar shadow, one that had haunted her dreams and whispered her name in the dead of night. The entry spoke of a journey she undertook to understand the shadow, to uncover its true nature. Lena's heart raced as she read Alara's words, feeling an echo of her own experiences in the inked lines. As Lena immersed herself in Alara's journey, she began to see parallels in their lives. Both women had felt isolated in their towns, misunderstood by those around them. Both had yearned for connection, for understanding. Lara's final entry spoke of a confrontation with the shadow, a meeting that changed everything. Lena felt an overwhelming urge to follow in Alara's footsteps, to seek the truth behind the shadow that now consumed her thoughts. One night, under the pale light of the moon, Lena ventured into the woods, the fog swirling around her like a living entity. She felt the pull of the shadow stronger than ever, guiding her deeper into the embrace of the trees. The air was thick with anticipation, and as she reached a clearing, she saw a dark figure coalescing from the mist, its form shifting and undulating as if it were made of smoke. "Lena," it whispered, the voice echoing in her mind. It was both familiar and foreign, a sound that resonated with her very essence. "I've been waiting for you. What are you?" Lena asked, her voice trembling yet resolute. "I am the shadow of your truth," it replied, its form solidifying into a shape that was both alluring and terrifying. "I am the embodiment of your fears, your desires, your unfulfilled dreams. I know your name because I know you." Lena felt a whirlwind of emotions, fear, curiosity, and an urge to understand. "Why have you come to me?" "Because you seek answers. You long for connection, for understanding. You have buried your truth beneath layers of expectation and doubt. I am here to guide you, to help you uncover who you truly are." As the shadow spoke, Lena felt a warmth spreading through her, as if the darkness was peeling away the layers she had built around herself. Memories flooded her mind, her childhood dreams of becoming a writer, the stories she had abandoned, the love she had never allowed herself to pursue. The shadow was right. She had hidden her true self, fearful of what others might think. "Will you help me?" Lena asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I will show you the way," the shadow replied, its voice wrapping around her like a cocoon. "But you must be willing to confront the darkness within you." With a deep breath, Lena nodded. The shadow extended a hand, and in that moment, Lena felt a surge of courage. She took the shadow's hand, and together they stepped into the abyss. What followed was a journey through the labyrinth of Lena's mind. The shadow led her through memories both cherished and painful. They traversed the landscape of her past, the laughter of friends, the bitter sting of betrayal, the moments of joy intertwined with sorrow. Each encounter with her memories was a revelation, a step closer to understanding herself. In one memory, Lena stood before a mirror, her reflection distorted by self-doubt. "You are not enough," the reflection sneered. But the shadow stood beside her, whispering, "You are more than enough. Embrace your truth." In another, she faced the ghost of her childhood dreams, the stories she had tucked away, gathering dust. "What happened to the girl who wanted to write?" the dreams asked, their voices a chorus of longing. The shadow urged her to remember the spark that had once ignited her passion. Through each trial, Lena discovered fragments of herself she had long forgotten. She realized that the shadow was not a foe, but a guide, leading her to the heart of her existence. With each revelation, the weight on her shoulders lifted, and the fog that had once felt suffocating began to dissipate. Finally, they arrived at a moment of reckoning, a pivotal choice that would define Lena's future. She stood at a crossroads, faced with the decision to embrace her true self or retreat back into the safety of conformity. The shadow, now a silhouette of her own making, urged her forward. "Choose to be free," it whispered. "Choose to write your own story." With newfound strength, Lena stepped forward, embracing the light that flooded the clearing. The shadow enveloped her, merging with her essence, and in that moment, she understood the shadow was a part of her, a reflection of her journey. As dawn broke, the fog lifted, revealing a world transformed. Lena returned to Eldridge Hollow, not as the woman who had walked into the woods, but as a vibrant, authentic version of herself. The townsfolk noticed the change in her, the light in her eyes, the confidence in her stride. She began to write again, pouring her heart onto the pages, crafting stories that resonated with the truths she had uncovered. The shadow no longer haunted her. It had become a companion, a reminder that darkness could lead to light, that embracing one's truth was the greatest journey of all. In the years that followed, Lena shared her tales with the world, weaving the threads of her own experiences into the fabric of her stories. Each narrative became a testament to the power of self-discovery, a celebration of the shadows that shape us. And so, in Eldridge Hollow, the legend of the shadow that knows your name transformed. No longer a tale of fear, but one of empowerment, a reminder that we all carry shadows within us, waiting for the moment we dare to embrace them and step into the light. In the quiet town of Eldridge Hollow, where the streets twisted like the branches of the ancient oak trees, there lived a girl named Clara. She was 8 years old, with bright eyes that sparkled like the stars she often gazed at from her bedroom window. Clara was an imaginative child, weaving tales from the whispers of the wind and the rustling leaves, but there was one thing that frightened her more than anything else: the dark. Clara's room was a sanctuary of color, with walls painted in soft pastels and shelves filled with books that opened portals to other worlds. Yet, as night fell and shadows danced across her walls, the comfort of her sanctuary turned into a prison of fear. She would pull the covers tightly around her, the soft fabric a flimsy shield against the encroaching darkness. But it was not just the darkness that terrified her. It was what lay within it, the whispers that drifted from beneath her bed. It started innocently enough, a faint sound that tickled her ears during the quiet hours of the night. Clara would lie still, heart racing, listening intently. At first she dismissed it as the creaks and groans of an old house settling, but as the nights wore on, the whispers became clearer. They were soft, melodic, like a lullaby sung by a distant mother. Clara found herself drawn to the sound, a strange mix of fear and curiosity swirling within her. One particularly stormy night, when the wind howled like a pack of wolves and rain lashed against the windows, the lullaby grew louder. It beckoned to her, a soothing call that promised safety from the storm outside. Clara sat up in bed, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers wove through her mind like a thread of silk, wrapping around her thoughts, urging her to listen, to understand. "Clara," the voice called, gentle yet insistent. "Come closer. I won't hurt you." Gathering her courage, Clara swung her legs over the side of the bed, the cold wooden floor sending shivers up her spine. She knelt down, peering into the dark abyss beneath her bed. The shadows were thick, almost tangible, and for a moment she hesitated. But the lullaby continued, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "Come closer, Clara. I'm waiting." With a deep breath, she leaned forward, her heart racing. The darkness seemed to swirl and pulse, and then, from the depths, a figure emerged. It was small and shrouded in shadows, yet there was a warmth about it that felt familiar. Clara blinked, and the figure took shape, a small creature with luminous eyes and a gentle smile. "Hello," it said, its voice like the chiming of delicate bells. "I am Leela, the guardian of dreams. I've been waiting for you." Clara's fear melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of wonder. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Leela's eyes sparkled as she explained. "I watch over the dreams of children. When you sleep, I sing to you, weaving your dreams into beautiful stories. But sometimes, when the darkness comes, I need help to keep the nightmares away." Clara felt a thrill of excitement. "What can I do?" "Listen closely," Lila said, her voice growing soft. "Tonight I need your help to chase away the shadows that haunt the dreams of your friends. You have a light within you, Clara, a light that can dispel the darkness." Clara nodded, determination replacing her initial trepidation. "What do I need to do?" "Close your eyes and let your imagination guide you," Lila instructed. "Picture the dreams you want to share, the laughter and joy, the adventures and love. Together, we will send them into the world." As Clara closed her eyes, she felt a warmth radiating from Lila. The darkness around them began to shimmer, and Clara's thoughts took flight. She imagined a world filled with dancing stars, where children played with glowing butterflies and laughter echoed like music in the air. With each thought, the shadows began to dissipate, replaced by a soft golden light. "Good, Clara," Lila encouraged, her voice weaving through the air like a gentle breeze. "Let your heart sing." Clara poured her hopes and dreams into the light, and it grew brighter, illuminating the shadows that had once seemed so daunting. She could feel the darkness retreating, fleeing from the warmth of her imagination. With every note of the lullaby they sang together, Clara realized that the shadows were not to be feared. They were a part of the world, just waiting to be transformed. As the last remnants of darkness melted away, Clara opened her eyes, her heart soaring. Lila smiled at her, the creature's form shimmering with the brilliance of 1,000 stars. "You did it, Clara. You have a gift," Lila said, her voice filled with joy. "Every night, when the darkness comes, remember that you can always call upon your light. Together, we will keep the nightmares at bay." Clara grinned, the weight of fear lifted from her shoulders. "I want to help everyone," she declared. "I want to share the light with all the children in Eldridge Hollow." Lila nodded, her luminous eyes shining with pride. "Then we shall. But remember, it takes courage to face the darkness. You must believe in your light." From that night on, Clara's relationship with the dark changed. No longer did she fear the shadows beneath her bed. Instead, she embraced them. Every evening she would kneel beside her bed and whisper to Lila, sharing her dreams and hopes. Together, they would sing the lullaby that filled the night air, a melody that would reach out to the children of Eldridge Hollow, weaving magic into their dreams. As the weeks turned into months, Clara became known as the Dream Keeper of Eldridge Hollow. Children would gather around her, eager to hear the enchanting tales she spun, tales of adventure and bravery, of love and friendship. Each story was a thread in the grand tapestry of dreams, and Clara's light shone brighter than ever. But as with all stories, darkness never truly disappears. One fateful night, a new shadow crept into Eldridge Hollow, a darkness that whispered of fears and doubts. It slithered through the streets, finding its way into the hearts of the children. Clara could sense it, a cold chill that seeped into her bones, desperate to protect her friends. Clara knelt by her bed, calling out to Lila, "Help me. There's a darkness that's creeping in, and I don't know how to stop it." Lila emerged from the shadows, her form flickering like a flame. "This darkness is different, Clara. It feeds on fear. You must confront it, not just for yourself, but for all the children who are losing their light." Clara's heart raced. "But how can I face it?" "Remember your light," Lila urged. "You have the power to create. Imagine a world where fear doesn't exist, where courage blossoms in the hearts of every child." With Lila's words echoing in her mind, Clara took a deep breath. She closed her eyes, envisioning a vibrant garden filled with flowers of every color, each one representing the dreams and hopes of her friends. She imagined laughter ringing through the air, a melody that could drown out the whispers of fear. As she summoned the image, Clara felt a surge of energy. The darkness began to writhe, pushing against her light, but she held firm, pouring every ounce of courage into her vision. The shadows twisted and turned, but Clara's garden of dreams blossomed, radiant and alive. "Together we are stronger," Lila chimed in, her voice harmonizing with Clara's thoughts. "Breathe life into your dreams." The garden exploded with color, and Clara felt the warmth of hope radiating from her heart. The darkness recoiled, its whispers fading as the light enveloped the room. Clara opened her eyes, and the shadows beneath her bed shimmered with a new brilliance. As the last echoes of fear dissipated, Clara knew she had triumphed. The children of Eldritch Hollow would sleep soundly, their dreams protected by the light they had all helped create. From that night on, the lullaby from beneath the bed became a cherished melody in Eldritch Hollow. Clara and Leela continued to weave dreams together, a partnership forged in courage and imagination. And every child who heard the lullaby knew that within them lay a light strong enough to chase away the shadows, a light that would forever be their guide. As the years passed, Clara grew older, but the magic of that night remained etched in her heart. She became a storyteller, sharing her adventures with children and adults alike, reminding them that even in the darkest of times, there is always a light waiting to be found. And so, the lullaby from beneath the bed lived on, gentle reminder that no matter how deep the darkness may seem, light of imagination and courage can always shine through, illuminating the path to dreams yet to come. In the small town of Eldritch Hollow, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there stood an old, dilapidated house that had long been the subject of local lore. The townsfolk had given it many names: the Hollow House, the Whispering Walls, and most ominously, the House of Shadows. Yet, the most peculiar feature of this house was something that was hardly mentioned in Old Window. On the second floor that should not have existed, the house had been abandoned for decades, its windows boarded up and its doors locked tight. The townspeople spoke of it in hushed tones, sharing stories of strange happenings and eerie noises that drifted through the night air. But the most curious tale centered around the window, which, despite the decay and neglect, remained intact. It was a single dusty pane that seemed to glow faintly under the moonlight, almost as if inviting the curious to peer inside. One autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and violet, a young girl named Clara found herself wandering near the old house. Clara was an adventurous spirit, with wild curls that danced in the wind and a heart full of questions. She had heard the stories, of course, but they only fueled her desire to uncover the truth. With each step towards the house, the air grew colder, and an inexplicable energy pulled her closer. As she approached the front door, she hesitated. The wood was rotting, and the hinges creaked ominously as she pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Sunlight filtered through the boarded windows, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine, but her curiosity outweighed her fear. She climbed the creaking staircase, each step echoing in the stillness, until she reached the second floor. The hallway was narrow and dimly lit, with peeling wallpaper and the scent of mildew lingering in the air. Clara's heart raced as she walked toward the end of the hall, where the mysterious window awaited her. It was unlike any window she had ever seen framed in ornate wood. It stood out against the decay surrounding it, almost as if it were alive. With a deep breath, Clara placed her hands on the cool glass and peered inside. To her astonishment, the window revealed a scene that was vivid and enchanting. A lush garden spread out before her, filled with vibrant flowers and trees that swayed in a gentle breeze. Birds sang sweetly, and the sun sparkled on a small pond at the center of the garden. It was a stark contrast to the desolation of the house. Clara blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. She pressed her forehead against the glass, feeling a warmth radiate from the other side. Suddenly the garden shifted, and Clara saw a figure, a woman with flowing hair and a serene smile kneeling by the pond. The woman looked up, her eyes meeting Clara's, with an intensity that sent a jolt of recognition through her. Clara felt as though she knew this woman, though she could not place her. "Come," the woman beckoned, her voice soft and melodic, echoing through the glass as if it were a bridge between worlds. Clara's heart raced. She wanted to step through the window to escape the confines of the old house and join the woman in the garden. But as she reached for the frame, A sudden chill swept through the air, and the vision behind the glass flickered. The woman's expression changed, her smile fading into a look of concern. "Not yet, my child," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You must understand first." In that moment, Clara was filled with an overwhelming sense of longing and sadness. She stepped back, her breath quickening as the garden faded from view, replaced by the dusty interior of the house. The window remained, but the magic had vanished, leaving only a lingering sense of loss. Determined to uncover the truth about the window, Clara began to research the house. She visited the town library, poring over old records and newspapers. She learned that the house had once belonged to a woman named Ilara, known for her kindness and her affinity for nature. Ilara had tended to the garden with love, and many townsfolk spoke of her ability to heal both plants and people. But one fateful winter, tragedy struck. A terrible illness swept through Eldridge Hollow, taking Ilara's life and leaving her garden to wither. As Clara delved deeper into the past, she uncovered whispers of a curse, a dark shadow, that had fallen over the house after Ilara's death. It was said that her spirit lingered, trapped between worlds, waiting for someone to free her. The window, Clara realized, was a portal to Ilara's garden, a remnant of the joy that once filled the house. Fueled by a sense of purpose, Clara returned to the old house, her heart set on helping Ilara find peace. She climbed the stairs once more, her resolve strong as she approached the window. She placed her hands on the frame and closed her eyes, focusing on her connection to the woman she had seen. "Please, Ilara," Clara whispered, her voice trembling. "Let me help you." For a moment the air around her crackled with energy. The window shimmered, and Clara felt a warmth envelop her. She opened her eyes to find the garden blooming before her once again, but this time it was different. The colors were more vibrant, the air filled with the sweet scent of flowers and the sounds of laughter. Ilara stood by the pond, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Thank you," Ilara said, her voice clearer now, resonating with clarity. "You have come to set me free." Clara nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. She understood now that Ilara's spirit was tied to the sorrow of her past, to the loss of her garden and her life. "I will help you find peace," Clara promised. With a gentle wave of her hand, Ilara guided Clara toward the garden. Together, they began to tend to the flowers that had long been neglected. Clara felt a connection to the earth, a bond that transcended time. As they worked, Ilara shared stories of her life, her love for the town, and her dreams for the garden. Clara listened, her heart swelling with empathy and understanding. Hours passed, and as the sun dipped low in the sky, the garden transformed. It was no longer a place of sorrow, but a sanctuary of joy and renewal. Clara and Ilara stood side by side, surrounded by blooming flowers and the vibrant colors of the setting sun. "Thank you for bringing me back to life," Ilara said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You have given me the gift of closure." As the last rays of sunlight faded, Clara felt a shift in the air. Ilara's form began to glow, her spirit radiant with peace. "It is time for me to go," she said softly. "You have freed me." With a final smile, Ilara stepped back into the garden, and in a flash of light she vanished, leaving Clara standing alone by the window. The garden remained, but it was now a reflection of hope and renewal, a testament to the bond they had forged. Clara took a step back from the window, her heart full. The house, once a place of shadows, now felt alive with a new energy. She knew that the window would always be there, a reminder of the power of connection and the beauty of letting go. As she turned to leave, Clara glanced back one last time. The garden shimmered in the moonlight, a promise of new beginnings and the enduring spirit of Ilara, forever free. And so, in the heart of Eldridge Hollow, the old house stood, its window a portal not just to a garden, but to the stories of love, loss, and the magic that binds us all. Clara walked away, her heart light, knowing that she had not only discovered the truth but had also become part of a story that would echo through time. "You won't lose me, Ilara," reassured him, her voice steady. "No matter where you go, our heartbeats will always be connected. We'll find a way to make it work." In the weeks that followed, they spent every moment together, counting the heartbeats that intertwined their lives. They shared promises and dreams, creating a tapestry of memories that would carry them through the distance. And when the day came for Kai to leave, they stood together at the edge of the woods, the trees whispering their goodbyes. As he drove away, Alara stood rooted to the spot, her heart heavy yet filled with hope. She could still hear his heartbeat, a distant echo that would remain with her always. In the silence that followed, she closed her eyes, counting the heartbeats in the dark each, one a reminder of the love they shared. Months passed and the seasons changed once more. Lara continued to wander the woods, finding solace in the rustling leaves and the gentle flow of the brook. She missed Kai deeply, but she held on to the promise of their connection, counting the heartbeats that bridged the distance between them. Then, one starry night as she sat by the brook, she felt a familiar rhythm in the air, a heartbeat that resonated with her own. Her heart raced as she turned, and there he was, standing at the edge of the clearing, his eyes shining with love and determination. "I'm back," Kai said, his voice a melody that filled the night. "I couldn't stay away." Lara rushed to him, their hearts colliding in a symphony of joy. "You found your way back," she whispered, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. "I realize that home isn't a place, it's where our hearts beat together," he replied, pulling her into an embrace. "And I want to build a home with you." As they stood together under the stars, counting the heartbeats that echoed in the dark, Alara knew that their love had triumphed over the shadows. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, their hearts forever intertwined. A testament to the power of love and the beauty of connection. In the small town of Eldridge, the heartbeat of life continued, a gentle reminder that even in the darkest of nights, love would always find a way to shine through. And as Alara and Kai walked hand in hand into the future, they knew they would always count the heartbeats in the dark, each one, a promise of hope, resilience, and an unbreakable bond. In the small town of Eldridge, where the shadows of the ancient oak trees danced to the rhythm of the wind, there lived a girl named Alara. She was known for her quiet demeanor and a heart that beat with the cadence of the unseen. Alara had a peculiar gift. She could hear the heartbeats of those around her, a soft symphony that accompanied her every step. It was a gift that both comforted and isolated her. For a while she could feel the pulse of life around her, she often felt detached from it. Alara spent her days wandering the woods that bordered Eldridge, her sanctuary. The trees were her friends, and the whispering leaves shared secrets that only she could understand. She would sit for hours by the babbling brook, counting the heartbeats of the creatures that came to drink. The rhythm of nature was soothing, a balm for her restless spirit. Yet, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a different kind of heartbeat filled the air, the pulse of the town. Each evening, as the townsfolk gathered in the square, their laughter and chatter created a cacophony of heartbeats, each one unique. Lara would stand at the edge, hidden in the shadows, listening. She could hear the quickened beats of excitement, the slow thuds of despair, and the erratic rhythms of love. But she never joined them, content to observe from a distance, feeling their emotions wash over her like waves. One fateful night, as a storm brewed on the horizon, Alara ventured out into the woods, feeling the electricity in the air. The wind howled through the trees, and the sky crackled with energy. She sought refuge in a hollowed-out tree, a place she often went to escape the world. As she nestled inside, she closed her eyes. Listening to the storm's heartbeat, the deep rumble of thunder, and the sharp crack of lightning, it was a symphony of chaos, and it resonated with her soul. Suddenly, amidst the storm's fury, she heard a heartbeat that was unlike any she had ever encountered. It was faint, irregular, and filled with a sense of urgency. Curiosity piqued. Alara followed the sound, weaving through the trees until she reached a clearing illuminated by flashes of lightning. There, lying on the ground, was a boy about her age, soaked to the bone, his heart racing in fear and pain. Her instincts kicked in. Alara rushed to him, kneeling by his side. "Are you okay?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. The boy's eyes fluttered open, revealing a depth of anguish that tugged at her heart. I can't breathe," he gasped, clutching his chest. Without hesitation, Alara placed her hand over his heart, feeling its frantic rhythm. "Just breathe with me," she urged, matching her breath to his. Slowly, the boy's heartbeat began to synchronize with hers, the frantic tempo calming into a steady rhythm. As the storm raged on, they remained connected, two hearts finding solace in one another. When the storm finally passed, the boy whose name was Kai sat up, a mixture of relief and confusion in his eyes. "Thank you," he said, his voice still shaky. I thought I was going to die out here. Ilara smiled softly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. You're safe now. The storm is over. From that night on, Ilara and Kai forged an unbreakable bond. They met in the woods every evening, sharing stories and secrets under the starlit sky. Kai was a free spirit, his laughter ringing like music, a stark contrast to Ilara's quietude. He brought color into her gray world, and she showed him the beauty of stillness. Together, they explored the depths of their hearts, counting the beats that echoed in the silence. As the weeks turned into months, the seasons changed, and so did their relationship. Their bond deepened, and soon they found themselves entwined in the complexities of young love. Ilara reveled in the warmth of Kai's presence, but she also felt the weight of her gift. She could hear the heartbeats of those around her, and with each passing day, she began to sense a darkness within Kaya, heartbeat that trembled with fear and uncertainty. One evening, as they sat by the brook, Ilara decided to confront him. "What's wrong, Kai?" "I can hear it in your heart," she said gently, her eyes searching his. He looked away, the shadows flickering across his face. "It's nothing, just things at home," he replied. But Ilara knew better. She could feel the tension in his heartbeat, the way it stuttered under the weight of unspoken words. "Please tell me," she urged, placing her hand over his. "You can trust me." Kai took a deep breath, his heart racing anew. "My family. They're struggling. My father lost his job and my mother is sick. I'm scared, Ilara. I don't know how we'll make it through." Ilara's heart ached for him. She could feel the love he held for his family, but also the despair that threatened to consume him. "You're not alone in this," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "We can face it together." The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Ilara and Kai worked together to support his family, organizing bake sales and community events to help alleviate their struggles. Ilara's compassion for Kai ignited a fire within her, and she felt more alive than ever. Yet as they grew closer, she found herself grappling with her own fears, the fear of losing him to the darkness that loomed over his heart. One fateful night, as they lay on the grass, staring up at the stars, Ilara could sense a change in Kai's heartbeat. It was heavier, burdened with the weight of despair. "Kai, please talk to me," she whispered, turning to face him. "I don't know how to keep going," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't know how to save my family." Ilara's heart raced, the urgency of his words echoing in her chest. "You're stronger than you think," she said, her voice steady. "We'll find a way through this. You're not alone." But Kai's eyes were clouded with doubt. "What if I fail? What if I can't do it?" In that moment, Ilara realized the depth of his pain, the fear that gripped him. She reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "You are not defined by your fears. You are defined by your heart, by how you choose to face them. Count your heartbeats, Kai. Each one is a step forward." As the weeks went on, the shadows of despair continued to loom over Kai, but Ilara stood by his side, counting the heartbeats that pulsed between them. They faced challenges together, and slowly the darkness began to lift. They found strength in their love, a light that pierced through the gloom. One evening, as they sat on the porch of Kai's home, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and purple, he turned to Ilara, his eyes filled with determination. "I want to change things," he said, his voice firm. "I want to fight for my family." Ilara smiled, feeling the warmth of his resolve. "Then let's do it together. We'll make a plan." With renewed hope, they began to organize community fundraisers, reaching out to neighbors and friends. Ilara's gift became a beacon of light as she listened to the heartbeats of those around her, feeling the pulse of unity that began to form within the town. Together, they created a network of support, and slowly, the tides began to turn for Kai's family. As the seasons changed once more, Ilara and Kai found themselves at the center of a growing community, their love blooming amidst the chaos. They learned to count not just their heartbeats, but the heartbeats of those around them, each one a reminder of resilience and hope. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves fell like confetti around them, Kai took Ilara's hands in his gaze steady. "Thank you for never giving up on me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You taught me to listen to not just the heartbeats, but to the love that surrounds us." Ilara's heart swelled with warmth. "And you taught me to fight to face the darkness with courage. We are stronger together." As they embraced, the world around them faded away. In that moment, they were two hearts beating in unison, a testament to the power of love and the beauty of connection. But life, as it often does, had its own plans. One fateful day, Kai received news that his father had been offered a job and another stat a chance for a fresh start. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air, and as they sat together under the stars that night, Ilara could feel the turmoil within him. "I don't want to leave," Kai confessed, his voice strained. "But this could be the opportunity we've been waiting for." Ilara's heart ached at the thought of losing him, but she knew that love meant letting go. "You have to follow your heart, Kai," she said softly. "This is your chance to help your family." Tears filled his eyes as he looked at her, the weight of their connection palpable. "What if I lose you?" In a small, unassuming town, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, stood a weathered old house at the end of Willow Lane. The house, with its peeling paint and creaking floorboards, had been the subject of local lore for generations. Children dared each other to approach its shadowy silhouette, while adults whispered of the peculiar events that had transpired within its walls. But the most curious aspect of the house was its ceiling fan. The fan hung in the center of the living room, a relic from a bygone era, its brass blades dulled with age. It was said to whisper secrets to those who dared to listen closely. Most dismissed it as mere superstition, a fanciful tale spun by bored townsfolk. But for Clara, a young girl with a vivid imagination, the whispers were all too real. Clara had recently moved into the house with her mother, who was seeking a fresh start after a tumultuous divorce. The transition had been hard on Clara, leaving her feeling adrift and alone in a new environment. The house, with its eerie aura and strange noises, only added to her unease. But it was the ceiling fan that intrigued her the most. On her first night, as Clara lay in bed, the fan whirred quietly above her. Its gentle hum reminded her of the lullabies her mother used to sing. She closed her eyes, but the sound morphed into a whisper, soft and melodic, curling around her like a warm blanket. "Clara," it seemed to say, "come listen." The next morning, Clara found herself drawn to the living room, her heart racing with anticipation. The fan was still, its blades casting shadows on the worn carpet. She stood beneath it, gazing up, her imagination igniting. "What do you have to tell me?" she whispered, half expecting a response. At first, the fan remained silent, but as the days turned into weeks, Clara began to notice something peculiar. Whenever she felt lonely or sad, the fan would start to spin gently, and she could hear the faintest of whispers. "Don't be afraid," it would say. "You are never alone." Clara confided in her mother about the whispers, but her mother merely smiled, attributing it to Clara's vivid imagination. "You know, sweetheart, sometimes we create stories to help us feel better," she said, brushing Clara's hair away from her face. Clara nodded, but deep inside, she knew that the fan was speaking to her in ways no one else could understand. As summer rolled in, Clara spent her days exploring the surrounding woods, collecting wildflowers and daydreaming about adventures. In the evenings, she would sit in the living room, the fan whirring softly above her, and listen intently. The whispers grew clearer, weaving tales of long-forgotten memories in distant lands. Clara felt as if the fan was sharing its history, its life, before settling in this house. One evening, while the sky blazed with the colors of sunset, Clara sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes fixed on the fan. "Tell me about your past," she pleaded. The fan began to spin faster, and the whispers transformed into a story of a family that once lived in the house, of laughter echoing through the halls, of dreams shared beneath the very fan that now watched over Clara. She learned of a young boy, Samuel, who had lived in the house long ago. Samuel was a dreamer like Clara, his imagination taking him to places far beyond the confines of his room. The fan had been his companion, whispering secrets of adventure and bravery, urging him to explore the world outside. But one day Samuel had vanished, leaving behind only echoes of his laughter and the gentle whispers of the fan. Clara felt a kinship with Samuel, a bond that transcended time. She imagined herself as the brave adventurer he had been, embarking on quests that led her through enchanted forests and mystical lands. The more she listened, the more she felt Samuel's spirit intertwining with her own, guiding her through her own challenges and fears. As the summer days slipped away, Clara discovered that the whispers were not just stories of the past. They were also a source of comfort and encouragement. When she faced difficulties at school or felt the weight of loneliness, the fan would spin and remind her, "You are strong. You can overcome anything." One rainy afternoon, Clara sat by the window, watching the droplets race down the glass. The world outside felt dreary, and her heart ached with a familiar loneliness. She glanced up at the fan, her heart heavy. "Why do I feel so alone?" she asked softly. The fan began to whirl, and the whispers enveloped her like a soft embrace. "You are not alone, Clara. You have friends waiting for you. You just need to reach out." Inspired by the fan's words, Clara decided to take a leap of faith. The following day, she invited her new classmates over for a small gathering. Nervous but determined, she set up games and snacks, her heart pounding with anticipation. As her friends arrived, Clara felt a flicker of doubt, but the fan above her spun gently, urging her onward. The laughter and chatter that filled the house echoed the joy that once resided there. Clara realized that the whispers had been right. She was not alone. With each shared story and playful moment, she forged connections that filled the empty spaces in her heart. As the summer faded into autumn, Clara's bond with her friends grew stronger. They explored the woods together, shared secrets beneath the whispering fan, and created memories that would last a lifetime. The fan had not only whispered tales of the past, but it also woven a new narrative of friendship and belonging. But as the leaves turned gold and began to fall, Clara felt a subtle shift in the air. The whispers grew quieter, almost as if the fan was preparing for a farewell. One evening, as Clara sat beneath it, she could feel the weight of change pressing down on her. "Are you leaving?" she whispered, her heart aching at the thought. The fan began to spin slowly, and a gentle breeze filled the room. "No, dear Clara, I will always be here watching over you. You have learned to find your own voice, and now it is time for you to tell your own stories." Tears filled Clara's eyes as she understood the message. The fan had been her guide, helping her navigate the journey of loneliness to connection. It had whispered the stories of the past to give her strength and courage for the future. Clara felt a deep gratitude for the fan and the spirit of Samuel that lived within it. As autumn settled into winter, Clara continued to grow, her heart full of the friendships she had forged. The fan remained a constant presence, a reminder of the whispers that had guided her. When the winter winds howled outside, Clara would sit beneath it, feeling the warmth of its presence, knowing that the stories would always be there, waiting to be told. Years passed, and Clara grew into a young woman, embarking on her own adventures and creating new stories. The old house remained, its walls echoing with laughter and memories. And in the center of the living room, the ceiling fan continued to whisper, not just to Clara, but to anyone who dared to listen. One day, as she prepared to leave for college, Clara stood in the living room, gazing up at the fan. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "for everything." The fan spun gently, and in that moment Clara knew that it had fulfilled its purpose. It had been a bridge between the past and the future, a guardian of dreams and stories waiting to be shared. With a heart full of hope, Clara stepped out into the world, ready to write her own story, knowing that the whispers of the ceiling fan would always be with her, guiding her through every chapter of her life.